Yes. Okay, that's the end of the video, bye. Okay, joking aside, and to get right to the point of the video, Final Fantasy XIII-2 is a fantastic game, my favorite game of all time, in fact. I believe that it gets completely overlooked due to the bad rap that its prequel got when it launched, which I also think is unwarranted, but that's an idea for another video. Also be warned, there will be spoilers for the whole game. Final Fantasy XIII-2 is a video game, from the game developer Square Enix, don't know if you heard about them, from the Final Fantasy series, which also obviously doesn't need an introduction. This game came out in 2011 and, at the time, Final Fantasy XIII-2 had borderline revolutionary graphics. This was actually one of the few things that was praised about the first 13. And even today, I would say that it still looks beautiful, not only the environments, but also the characters themselves, which are so well done that you can almost see each wrinkle in the characters' faces, and even more in the animated cutscenes. This realistic, but still very anime style of animation and design still completely holds even nowadays. I would say that it looks better than many AAA games of this day and age. In terms of sales figures, Final Fantasy XIII-2 actually sold pretty decently, around 3 million copies worldwide. Still very far away from the best-selling games in the series, but still not bad. Well, I say that, but that might be a bit of copium talking. So now let us proceed with the most anticipated part of most Final Fantasy games, which is the story. The story of Final Fantasy XIII-2 is about a very non-complicated topic, time travel. Many other video games, as well as TV series and movies, have tackled this type of storytelling, with various degrees of success. Most of the time, time-traveling stories created a lot of plot holes, and to be fair, Final Fantasy XIII-2 isn't exactly exempt from that. However, among these types of stories, I think this game is the most non-offensive in terms of creating plot holes. The ones it creates mostly aren't even noticeable, and if they are, they don't affect your enjoyment and understanding of the narrative. Our story follows two main characters, Sarah and Null. For one, Sarah should be familiar to the player, due to the fact that she was one of the main points that pushed the previous game's party forward, mainly Snow and Lightning. In regards to Null, he is a completely new character created for this game. However, I would say that you will like him even more than some of the main characters from the prequel, like Hope Cough Cough. Throughout the story of Final Fantasy XIII-2 you will get to know Null's past, his relationship with Yule and the main villain of this game Caius, and his development from a confident yet unsure teenager, to the frustration of not actually being able to change his destroyed future, to finally a made man who cares for his friends. He is someone I will most definitely make a video about in the future. And speaking of the main characters, they are the first plot hole I wanted to talk about, or more specifically, the source of their powers. In the prequel, the party's power derived from the LC brand, without them, they couldn't even cast fire. In this game, Sarah and Null don't have LC brands, but they can still cast all sorts of magic. In Sarah's case, you can kinda explain it due to the fact that she still is recognized as having a LC brand by an artificial false, around the middle part of the game. But in Null's case, he was never a LCI. I have seen some people speculating that he was given his powers by the goddess of death Etro, but as far as I know there is no confirmation of this in the game. So they both have magic because reasons, I guess. There is not much to tell about the gameplay of this game, it is pretty much the same as the prequel. It still uses the ATB system that many people hate but I quite like, and to level up it is still the Crystarium, but much improved. Now, in terms of what I think is the best new part of the gameplay in this game, I have only one word for you, Pokemon. No, seriously, Final Fantasy XIII-2, on top of the great battle mechanic in the ATB system, it also has a Pokemon mechanic. For some reason that isn't exactly explained either, both Sarah and Lightning can tame and control monsters, and call them into battle. Almost every monster in this game, aside from bosses and specific enemies, has a chance of turning into a crystal at the end of a battle. If they do turn into a crystal, you can then use them in your party and eventually level them up through the Crystarium. You can even give them nicknames, therefore the comparison to Pokemon. Despite the fact that many of the monsters are just skins of others, I would say they are just as good in terms of design as Pokemon. The monsters in this game have a much more aggressive and realistic look to them, in comparison to Pokemon's more cutesy designs. Unfortunately, you can't control the monsters during battle. They are automatically controlled by the computer, just like the monsters in Final Fantasy XII-2. On the other hand, since each monster is locked to a specific role, they more often than not gain skills that the main characters don't have access to. For example, synergist skills like in arrow and in fire are locked to monsters. Another point in favor of the monsters is that each of them has an exclusive feral link. Most of them are just normal attacks, only usable to do damage or to increase or stabilize the stagger bar. But there are also feral links that give the party an Omni boost or an Omni debuff on the enemy. Out of all of them, I would say that the Goblin Chieftain Spirit Infusion is one of the best, if not the best, Omni boost in the game. Despite the fact that it boosts less parameters than other Omni boosts, only giving Bravery, Protect, Shell, Veil and Vigilance, it lasts longer than other Omni boosts. In my opinion, these monsters give off the same feeling that Pokemon give. The feeling of getting a wild beast, befriending it and developing them into the god-destroying machines they can be. Not to mention that this mechanic makes for a better Pokemon game than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so there's that. But the monsters are the other big plot hole of this game. Neither Sarah nor Lightning for that matter have ever been able to control monsters other than the Eidolon, but in this game both of them can control an army of them because, reasons. Again. Now there is a topic that I mentioned earlier that I would like to highlight, and that is the main villain of the game, Caius Ballad. Actually, Caius is not necessarily a villain, more of an antagonist, and Final Fantasy's best antagonist in my opinion. Why do I say that Caius is not a villain but an antagonist? Well, despite the fact that his objective directly goes against that of Sarah and Null, and that he is constantly putting up obstacles in front of him, he never does anything necessarily evil. He never necessarily kills anyone with that exact intent. Even when he stabs both Sarah and Null, he doesn't kill them, he sends them to an alternate reality where they would be happy forever. His objective is in fact to kill the goddess and destroy the current timeline. Despite this, it is actually a selfless objective. First of all, if he kills the goddess, is going to kill himself, due to the fact that his own heart is a manifestation of Etro. Second of all, he is doing this in order to release Yule, a girl he is sworn to protect, from a curse that makes her see the future, but die at a very young age in the process. So in essence, he is sacrificing himself in order to save Yule, and I don't see how that makes him necessarily a villain. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Sarah also has this curse for some reason that is never explained. The ending of the game, and spoiler BTW, is done incredibly. After the final boss fight, in which Caius transforms into 3 different dragons at the same time, Null refuses to kill Caius. However, the latter ends up killing himself in order to achieve his goal. Noel's best moment happens then as he makes some sort of memorial with Caius' sword, as he passes on. In this scene, Null understands Caius' reasons and admits him as a friend. As our main characters are returning home as heroes, Sarah has one final vision and dies in the process, ending the game on a tearjerker. However, I say this game ends in an incredible way, despite the fact that Sarah dies, due to the fact that it not only brings a fantastic conclusion to Null's story, until the next game at least, but also that Sarah's death scene comes out of nowhere. The game makes you forget completely about Sarah and Yule's connection, only for her to suddenly die at the happiest moment of the game. This great rug pull makes for a great scene and sets up the sequel, Lightning Returns. As I said before, Final Fantasy XIII-2 is a fantastic game, which has something for everyone, be it the incredibly underrated story, the fantastic antagonist, the very fun gameplay or even Pokemon. If this video has one objective, is to convince more people to play it and give it a shot to impress them.